Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizen Bank Studio. Hope you're having a great day as we continue to celebrate all the wonderful people across the state of Mississippi who are working so hard to make this such a great place to live, work, and play. And man, have we had a string of wonderful shows. If you missed our shows, go to your favorite podcast or go to SuperTalk Mississippi Facebook page or YouTube page or SuperTalk Gulf Coast Facebook page. We're wherever, however you want to engage in the show. You can also go to the Ricky Matthews Show Facebook page. So great string of shows, and today is right there along that great string, and it's a Friday, so we have Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, and I enjoy visiting with Jeff. Well, listen, Saints training camp is going on, all kinds of cool things are happening there. He's had the opportunity to be involved in a continual sort of publicizing of the book that he recently wrote. I saw you with Steve. I mean, it looked like the turnout. Tell more about what that was all about.
Well, we were at Steve's hometown of Spokane, Washington. It was my first trip there, and the local newspaper in Spokane, the Spokesman Review, does this really neat event, Ricky. You'd love it. It's really kind of a regular event, book interviews, book sessions. They call it Northwest Passages. And they hosted Steve Gleason for his, of course, the memoir we wrote while Steve and his family were up vacationing in the Pacific Northwest. And we had a record crowd, almost a capacity crowd in Gonzaga's Performing Arts Center. And it was just a great night. I know it was really important for Steve to be able to share, how he wrote the book, why he wrote the book with all of his friends and family from the immediate area there. It was just a tremendous turnout and really a lot of love in the audience that night.
Listen, I hope at some point, again, this is the offers there, but hopefully SuperTalk can work with Steve and his people to get a book signing done here in coastal Mississippi. I can assure you the turnout will be terrific. You saw when your book came out, the response that you got, and hopefully we can do the same thing. But I saw the pictures and the videos afterwards with you signing and all of that. I mean, you could just tell, man, so incredibly well received.
Yeah, they told me, they said, look, we know you all in New Orleans love Steve, and he's your, adopted son. He goes, but he's our son first. He's our first son here. I mean, he's extremely popular. I got a chance to hang out with some reporters from the newspaper that covered him when he played high school football here. So that was a lot of fun hearing stories about when he played for Gonzaga Prep. And a lot of his former teammates, Scott Fujita from the New Orleans Saints was there. Got a chance to visit with Scott. Scott's going to come out to Saints training camp next week with some other members of the Saints Super Bowl team. So it should be a really great time, and it was really fun to visit with Scott as well.
Well, that's really cool. So let's get to training camp. Listen, man. First thing I will note is that being in California, they have enjoyed not being in the hot. I mean, especially right now, because as we do this show, it's 100 degrees, and the heat index is God only knows what. And I wouldn't be surprised, Jeff, if they didn't go back there even after the cafeteria is finished.
I think they'd like to. I think they're a little conflicted, Ricky, just because they have that nice facility there in Metairie, and it's certainly less expensive to hold the camp at home as opposed to going on the road. But they love being out in California for the reasons we talked about. The weather is idyllic. The players love it. They're much crisper and fresher for practice, and you can push the players a little harder. And players have really a better ability to focus on the task at hand as opposed to just surviving physically the practice. So I do think there will be consideration for that. Maybe what they end up doing is some kind of hybrid thing where they go out for a week or two to California and then come back. But, I think what they're doing this year, Ricky, where they're coming back to New Orleans, you're going to have 3 open practices between Tulane and the Superdome. The fans will get their chance to see the team up close and personal, and I think that's important to the team as well.
So it's going to be, we're going into the first preseason game, and right out the bat, one of the things to note is that at the quarterback position, the Saints seem to be in pretty good shape. I mean, Carr's having good camp. Spencer Rattler and Haener are going after each other. Haener was out for a day with the skin cancer, whatever, corrective surgery, whatever they were doing there on his face. Spencer Rattler has slowly but surely come on, but Haener, no one says that Haener has had a bad camp. So Haener has been playing, and I watched some videos yesterday comparing Haener with Rattler, and both of them have incredibly good arms, don't they?
Yeah, I think this preseason slate, these 3 games, it's going to be very important for that competition. I mean, yes, every practice you're evaluated, every throw you're evaluated, but how you perform in these games, I think, is going to go a long way to determine who wins that competition. And Dennis Allen said the other day, we're still trying to evaluate whether we have a backup quarterback or not. And I think what he means by that is, do they feel comfortable enough with these 2 young players to where if something did happen to Derek Carr, we could go with one of them to start a game and maybe try and win games. And I think that evaluation is still ongoing. So I think they like the talent of both of them, but whether their experience is there or not to lead this team or not, I think still up in the air.
Yeah, I mean, listen, with this particular offense, with any offense, a lot of responsibility falls on the quarterback. But for this particular offense to run efficiently and well, boy, the quarterback has a really important role. So reading the defense and all these different, jobs. I mean, this is a very specific kind of offense, and everyone who has been indoctrinated to it, they love it. So
yeah, it's a very quarterback-friendly offense. You're right, and it requires the quarterback to do a lot of moving parts, moving players around, getting them in motion, starting the motion, setting protections. So a lot on the plate, and that's why I think a guy like Derek Carr is going to thrive in this offense because he can move. All 3 of these quarterbacks can move, so they kind of fit the system very well.
Hey, listen. Olave's played a lot during this training camp, a lot. You pray that he doesn't get hurt, but boy, man, he has had a hell of a camp, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think he looks like he's poised kind of to take the next step, right? He's always been kind of a top receiver in the league, one of the top probably 20 receivers, 25. He has a chance, I think, to move up toward that top 10, and he's going to be basically absorbing a lot of the throws that Mike Thomas used to get, in addition to the intermediate and deep routes he took. So he's going to become more of a true X receiver in this offense, and those balls come your way when you're the X receiver in this system. And, talking to some people around the league the last few days, they really think this offense is going to be ground oriented. And I know a lot of people are worried about the third receiver and the depth at receiver. But people I'm talking with make a good point. They said the Saints are going to live in really 2 backs, 2 tight end sets. They're not going to have a lot of those 3 receiver sets out there. So the third receiver is not as critical in this system and this offense, the way it's going to be run under Kubiak, as it would say in the old Saints offense where they were in a lot of 3 receiver sets. So I think it's something to note.
Yeah, the two back set is a big departure from the offense that Saints ran before. And so we know in our first 2 guys, as far as receivers concerned, we've got Olave and Shaheed, and they've both had great camps. And then there was concern about A.T. Perry as a third receiver in the past few days, maybe the past week. He's kind of come on. What's your current thinking about A.T. Perry?
Well, I mean, I think he got a charge lit under him by Dennis Allen early in camp to become more consistent, to kind of push him a little bit. And I think he's responded to it. He's definitely a big-bodied receiver. They don't really have anybody with his size on the outside, and we've seen flashes of his playmaking ability. I've seen it in practice where he's made the play of the day numerous times. But it's that consistency, the attention to detail, all the things that go into playing receiver at a high level. I think they've got a lot of candidates, a lot of guys that can be that third receiver, but I don't know if anybody's seized it yet. And again, I don't know if they're going to be in a lot of multiple receiver sets. So I think having that top 2 solidified the way they have it, I think what you're going to see is Clint Kubiak playing the 5 best perimeter players he has. And I think the 5 best perimeter players clearly are the 2 receivers, Kamara, Taysom Hill, and Juwan Johnson. I think you're going to see those guys on the field a lot.
Yeah, it is so fun to watch. And then And then so when they have the pad zone, they're going after each other. What you're seeing, I'm paying close attention to social media, what you're seeing is a growing awareness of the talent that we have on our defensive line, an area that was of concern for us before. We shored it up. They were testing the offensive line, a lot of concern initially about the offensive line, but then the offensive line has kind of stepped it up. And, this is a really good defensive front for our offensive line to get tested with, especially in track. I want to get your thoughts about that. We're at the end of this session. So when we come back on the other side, we'll talk about that because, it's so interesting. Jeff and I were in the same spot last year saying the difference in whether this team's going to be successful or not is going to happen in the trenches, both on the defensive side of the ball and the offensive side of the ball. And in both cases, that was not a strong suit last year. Could it be a strong suit this year? We'll find out on the other side. See you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, somebody I love talking to because he's an ultimate insider. And you will see why I say that in next week or so. This guy has the ability to get into places that others can't get, but I can't say much more about that. Jeff, so you heard the way I ended the segment about we're going to win in the trenches. Kind of talk about what we're seeing as it relates to the offensive line and the defensive line.
Well, the team has made, significant investments along both fronts. So, there's a lot of talent there. Now, they've got to do it on the field. It can't just be on paper, but we see all these high draft picks on the offensive line, Trevor Penning and Taliesin Fuaga, both first rounders. And of course, Cesar Ruiz, a first rounder, and McCoy's a second rounder. So there's a lot of investment there. And the same on the defensive side of the ball, their top free agent acquisition this offseason was Chase Young, who was the number 2 pick overall in the entire draft. So I just need to see it in games against other competition before I can really make a good evaluation of where things stand. It's difficult often when you're going against each other to determine, who's winning the battle. Is it because one side is so superior or is it because the other side is inferior? It's difficult when you're going against yourself. That's why I think this Arizona game, and then next week, especially when they have these practices against the Niners, the elite team in the NFC by all consideration, that'll be a perfect gauge when we can really see what the Saints have.
Listen, there's sort of a Chase Young watch going on right now. And I read a couple of national stories about him recently. Some already beginning, if he can stay healthy, big if. But if you see how he's performed in practice, there's a lot to be hopeful about. But they're saying that he may be one of the biggest cheaper acquisitions that happened in this offseason, especially if he stays healthy. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, look, if he plays up to his potential, he was the number 2 pick in the entire draft. So I can see why the Saints rolled the dice on him, and he's got to stay healthy. That's been an issue for him lately. But, the guy's been on 3 teams now in less than a year. So, that often doesn't happen with a truly elite player. So I think we just have to see how it plays out. The 49ers are a very good organization, and he was in their building, and they let him move on. So, the same guy was there. That's why I have a little pause to see, the Commanders made a significant investment in him, and they traded him away. So there's reason to be concerned. Having said that, there's no doubt about the talent, and we're seeing it flash a lot at Saints camp right now.
Even when Cam Jordan looks at him and says, "Whew, this is a big dude."
Yeah. No. And they need somebody like him. That's the reason they went out and signed him. Their pass rush was near the bottom of the league last year. It's got to get better.
And watching Kubiak and the conversations with Eric McCoy and even some of the younger guys that they've given media access to, the story on Trevor Penning has been pretty good. They feel like this experiment, you can call it an experiment, moving him from the other side of the line. They feel pretty good about what he's doing right now.
I think the biggest challenge for Trevor Penning right now is between the ears, not between the lines. It's not his physical ability. It's going to be when he gets beat, because he's going to get beat. It happens to every lineman. Can he keep his confidence up? Can he continue to go on to the next play? Sort of like what we see with a cornerback. You got to have a short memory when you're playing tackle in this league, just like you do in the secondary. And that's what I'm going to be watching, especially when they go against the Niners, who have elite defenders on the edge. He's going to get tested, and he got tested a year ago, like I mentioned, against the Chargers. Didn't fare well. So that's why I think this gauge next week against the Niners is going to be really eye-opening.
And speaking of Fuanga, boy, the book on him so far has been positive. And then when you see him, when he does his press availability and he's asked questions like, if you learn anything new, and he's so confident, but not arrogantly confident, just confident. He comes in and he says, no, I'm having to, do a different stance, because I'm on a different side of the field. But this guy's a beast.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe him. He's a big man. I mean, wide. He reminds me his build a little bit of Carl Nicks, that was an all-pro for the Saints at guard. Very wide human being. Very difficult to get around guys like that. And he's got the feet of a bear, like a dancing bear. So he's he looks the part there. Now there's going to be some growing pains. I mean, it happens at that position for a rookie, but he's got the demeanor, the almost professional demeanor of a veteran. And so it's very unusual to see a guy like that. I agree with you. He's confident, but, borderline cocky. Not to that point, but he knows he belongs. Put it that way.
What's interesting about him? I have a cousin who lives in Birmingham. His name is Harold, and he was a state champion wrestling guy. Had an opportunity to go play for Coach Bear Bryant. He chose going to blacksmith school instead. What a dumb decision that was. He regrets it to this day. But he was tough, man. I mean, he still is. When you shake his hand, he's just got big hands and good genes and. He's tough, man. Nobody ever beat him wrestling. I mean, he was a beast. He still is. Fuanga's like that too. He's got good genes, man. It's rare to see somebody that's just solid. I mean, doesn't have a history of being hurt. He's got a history of being consistent. I mean, he comes in with a pedigree that is one that can not only become one of the best linemen for the Saints over the course of the next few years, but might be one of the best in the entire NFL. What a capture he was.
And look, and he needs to be an answer there because, next to him at guard, they've still got question marks. Who's going to be the left guard? I don't think we know who that's going to be right now. And that side of the line, if you're the opponent of the New Orleans Saints, you're going to come out testing the left side of the line. You've got two unproven commodities there. Yeah, Fuanga is a first-round draft pick, but there's a lot of first-round draft picks that don't play, that don't pan out in the NFL at tackle. So they're going to get tested because there's more proven commodities on the other side of the line. So we're going to find out quickly how he measures up.
Or you're going to see that next week because he's going to face some of the best edge rushers in the NFL. That's going to be awesome to watch.
Yeah, Nick Bosa will test him early and often.
It's kind of scary to think about that. But, we're going to learn in the next 2 weeks, buddy. We're going to learn a lot, aren't we?
Yeah, that's why I want to wait and see before I start making judgments on how they're performing. I try to tell people all the time, when you see these one-on-ones and you see the receivers catching these balls and these one-on-one, I mean, the receiver is going to win that 95% of the time. There's nobody else out there. That's a drill built for the receiver to win. Just the same way in pass protection one-on-ones, the defender, is built to win those. So you have to really kind of gauge what you're watching and understand who they're going against and in what drill they're going against to really evaluate what you're seeing.
Be interesting if you could really get inside Kubiak's head. What's going on in his head, knowing what next week means to him, having come from San Francisco, knowing all those players. And is he intimidated by it or is he really challenged by it? It would be interesting to know that. Any insight on that at all?
Well, look, I think people have to understand, Clint Kubiak was in San Francisco for 1 year. It's not like he's studied under Kyle Shanahan for years. I think this system is more, when I talked to his dad back early this summer, he goes, this system's going to be what Clint Kubiak wants it to be. It's not necessarily going to be this hybrid of the Niners. He had way more mentorship on his son, Gary did on Clint, than Kyle Shanahan did. Clint Kubiak coached under his dad for multiple years. and spent, he was offensive coordinator in Denver, and he was offensive coordinator calling plays in Minnesota. So he was a much bigger role in those places than he was in San Francisco. I think everyone, is kind of getting a little too caught up in what he did in San Francisco. Kyle Shanahan's offensive coordinator there, just like Sean Payton was in New Orleans his years. He's calling the plays. So I do think, this, like any good coach, he's morphing their offense to the players he's got. And he's going to play to their strengths. He's not going to run a bunch of 4 receiver sets when the Saints don't have 4 really elite receivers. He's going to get Taysom Hill on the field because he's one of their best players. And that's why we're seeing more plays designed for the 2 backs, because you want to get him on the field.
Now look back at my past as a leader in companies, and some of the most effective people that I remember were quiet and strategic and smart as hell. And when you listen to Clint Kubiak, when he's doing press availabilities, he's a thoughtful dude, man. And he may be creating his own tree, after all this is over with, He's very innovative and cerebral. And that's what we needed. We needed someone who could come in and do exactly what you just said, and that is adapt to the strengths of this team. And he's excited about the strengths of this team, isn't he?
Yeah, and he comes from great stock. I mean, his dad was one of the top offensive minds in the league for decades, working under, Mike Shanahan and under Mike Zimmer. I mean, those are some of the legends in this game. So he comes from a coaching background. He's been immersed in the game forever. And I agree with you, very cerebral guy, almost introverted to some degree. He just wants to break down film like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. Breaking down the X's and O's. I mean, he's not interested in winning the press conference. That's not Clint Kubiak, and it's probably what they need right now at that role.
Well, Jeff, it's been a pleasure to catch up with you. I look forward to talking next week so we can talk about some of the work that you've been doing behind the scenes to leverage your relationships. I can't wait to learn more about that, and we'll have a lot more body of knowledge to draw back on by next week. So until then, have a great week, my friend.
Thanks. We'll talk about the Cardinals game as soon as we get back next week.
You bet. Jeff Duncan from Duncan of The Times-Picayune. Have a great day. And we'll see you on the other side with SuperTalk Mississippi News. We'll see you after this.